Mangwanani Mwalelepo Vukenjani Klekwas Wanave Africa. Welcome to Africa Good Morning, the news and current affairs show bringing you everything you need to know happening in the SADC region and beyond. Today is Wednesday, the 18th of August, and as usual, you are joined by Ashwin Berry and Aina Raiza Koyo.
Today is one of my favorite days ever. It is Never Give Up Day.
Right.
Never Give Up Day is all about cultivating a mindset of determination which helps us to get through all the difficult challenges that life throws our way. It is about motivating and inspiring ourselves and others, as well as remembering people that never gave up on those. We should use this day not only to applaud people for reaching their goals, but also to support those who are still trying to achieve their goals and have not quite gotten there yet. It is a wonderful day.
Absolutely.
It's important that we support one another, especially just letting one another know that even if you don't do it today, tomorrow is another day and you can try again.
Absolutely. They say, if it's not all right in the end, then it's not the end. Never give up.
Definitely. And here is more on Never Give Up Day. Welcome back to Africa Good Morning. Now, in our top stories this morning, change is here, says Zambia's President-elect Hakainde Hichilema. Zambian President Hakainde Hichilema on Monday slammed the Southern African country's ongoing brutal regime while promising a better democracy in his debut address to the nation hours after winning for the top job in the landslide. Speaking shortly after his predecessor Edgar Lungu conceded defeat, the business tycoon and veteran opposition leader said his camp had been victims of a brutal regime that is exiting. I will be president for all Zambians, those that voted for me and those that did not, he pledged. Lungu conceded defeat, saying he congratulated my brother Hichilema for becoming the 7th Republican president. In a nationally televised address, Lungu thanked Zambians for a great opportunity to be their president. I will forever cherish and appreciate the authority you have invested in me.
In our second story, female soldiers on the front line in northern Mozambique. A small contingent of female naval soldiers in the Rwanda Defense Force have been fighting alongside their male counterparts to push back against rebels allied with the Islamic State group in northern Mozambique. The rebels were occupying the strategic town of Mocimboa da Praia in Cabo Delgado province until a 1,000-strong Rwandan force was deployed there. They forced the rebels to withdraw into remote areas and break up into smaller groups. Lieutenant Yvonne Umwiza, who leads a Rwandan speedboat unit, said that women were treated no differently to men in the mixed units. There are no specific challenges here in Cabo Delgado for us as female soldiers, she said. We face the same problems as the men, and we are very well trained to perform our duties.
In our next story, Mozambique's military offensive facing little resistance. Mozambique's military chief has said the ongoing offensive in the restive northern region of Cabo Delgado has faced little resistance because the militants based there have likely discarded their weapons and disguised themselves as civilians. He said 90% of the militants were Mozambicans. Last year, the group captured the gas boom town of Palma and the strategic port town of Mocimboa da Praia. Priya. Mokimboa Priya was retaken last week after a campaign led by the Rwandan troops who were deployed to the region last month as part of a bilateral agreement. Member countries in the Southern African Regional Bloc, SADC, have also joined efforts to fight the Islamist militants in northern Mozambique. More than 3,000 people have been killed and 820,000 have fled their homes since the insurgency in Cabo Delgado, which began in 2017.
Now in the Democratic Republic of Congo, CENI, the National Assembly grants 72 hours to religious denominations to find a consensus. After the 48-hour deadline granted to religious denominations to find a compromise in the appointment of the president of the CENI, the lower house of parliament has just given, again, a 72-hour moratorium. Through a press release signed by the rapporteur of the Office of the National Assembly, Joseph Lembi Libula, the president of the National Assembly, Christophe Mboso Nkodia, informs the Congolese people that an additional 72 hours has been granted religious denominations so that they reach a consensus in the appointment of the new president of the Independent National Electoral Commission, as well as a member of the plenary of this electoral center. Therefore, this period runs from this Saturday, August 14, 2021, to expire on Tuesday, August 17 of this current year at midnight, specifies the note. An additional period that falls after the establishment of a joint committee to examine the delegates chosen by different components to form the new office of the CENI.
New anti-multi-party movement. A new movement called Mangolo Eswatini, which is against multi-party organization, has been formed. This was highlighted by the spokesperson of the movement, Trina Dlamini, during a press briefing held in Manzanzi yesterday. Dlamini said the recently experienced political unrest had brought fear among Emaswatini because they no longer knew who they were, and in the midst of the call of multi-party democracy, they had lost their identity. He said they were against the idea of multi-parties, and the formation of the movement was premised on the ideology to oppose such. He said Emaswati did not face any difficulties when trying to visit other countries because the kingdom had always been known to be a respectful and trusted nation.
Now, our next story comes from Botswana as the private sector gets go-ahead for vaccine purchases. The private sector has reportedly been given a conditional green light to acquire and distribute COVID-19 vaccines among its workers, their families, and even communities it operates in, working in close collaboration with the government and health regulators Memege has established. The development is seen as a breakthrough to months of negotiations between government and the private sector, which had argued that allowing companies to vaccinate their own staff would relieve the weight on the government. Since COVID-19 vaccine production began globally last year, government has retained the sole right to purchase and distribute doses, with officials saying that manufacturers preferred to deal with governments and not individual companies. This week, Business Botswana President Gobo Masanga Kebene told Memege there had been positive developments with regard to the private sector playing a greater role in direct vaccine acquisition. We have agreed that subject to certain conditions, they will let us, the private sector, procure and vaccinate our staff, families, and even communities that we operate from.
In our next story, Paul Rusesabagina from Hotel Rwanda hero to accused terrorist. The mild-mannered hero of Hotel Rwanda, credited with saving hundreds of lives during the 1994 genocide, Paul Rusesabagina evolved into Kigali's sharpest tongue critic before being tried for terrorism. Paul, a moderate Hutu critical of the extremist regime, appeased the killers with beers and used his connections to barter for food as guests drank pool water in depression. Paul left Rwanda in 1996 1996, along with the moderates who believed the space for political opposition was fast shrinking. He relocated to Belgium with his children and wife and faded into obscurity. But the 2004 release of Hotel Rwanda made Paul an overnight celebrity. He was awarded the U.S. Presidential Medal of Freedom and toured the globe warning of the evils of men.
Now in South Africa, deployment of SANDF soldiers extended to 13 September at cost of 255 million rand. President Cyril Ramaphosa has extended the deployment of South African National Defence Force soldiers to assist police in maintaining law and order in the country. The deployment of 10,000 was confirmed via a letter on Monday from Ramaphosa to the National Council of Provinces. The deployment will be extended from 13 August 2021 to 13 September 2021. The letter addressed to NCOP chairperson Amos Masondo was dated 10 August and also confirmed that the deployment would cost approximately 255 million rand. 25,000 soldiers were initially deployed on 12 July amid the violence and looting to attend to the intense unrest. At the time, Ramaphosa suggested more soldiers be deployed, despite the cost, as the lives of South Africans being killed should be prioritized.
In our next story, South African Facebook serial rapist gets 8 life sentences and 223 years behind bars. Tokozani Giane, a man dubbed as Facebook serial rapist, has received a lengthy sentence in the Johannesburg High Court. He would lure his victim on Facebook, pretending to be in the filming industry and offering them jobs. Giane requested all his victims to travel by taxi and meet him at the Angelo informal settlement in Boksburg. This was where he would ambush them in a bushy area, strangle them before raping them and robbing them of their belongings. Giane was finally arrested in March last year in the Angelo informal settlement after an informer raised the alarm. The High Court on Tuesday sentenced Giane to 8 life terms and a further 223 years. He was found guilty of 17 counts of rape and 10 counts of robberies and aggravating circumstances, 2 counts of kidnapping and assault GBH, and 3 counts of fraud.
In Botswana, stakeholders give rapist life sentence thumbs up. Different stakeholders involved in upholding human rights in the country have welcomed the recent life imprisonment of a 36-year-old man convicted of raping a 4-year-old girl in 2004. In a rare ruling, Justice Matlogonolo Putego sentenced Dipuo Marutwane of Pola Road Village to life behind bars for the offense. Although it was not the first time that a rape convict was given a life sentence in Botswana, different stakeholders hailed Putego's judgment. The sentence will go a long way in sending a very strong message to perpetrators of rape and broader violators of human rights, especially GBV cases. Botswana is one of the countries with the highest prevalence of rape cases in the world. The courts have taken a leadership role in stemming the tide of sexual violence and other forms of GBV. We call upon every organization involved in the fight against GBV, such as customary courts, religious sector, institutions that provide care to victims of GBV, amongst others, to not let their guard down, Keleni encouraged.
In our next story, Zimbabwean family marries off a 13-year-old daughter due to hunger. A Zimbabwean family from Zombe reportedly married off their 13-year-old daughter to a 21-year-old man due to hunger. Fortunately, the short-lived marriage was stopped after a former junior council got wind of the matter and raised alarm, leading to community intervention. The girl, who cannot be named, was rescued from the in-laws after having stayed there for some days. Villagers, led by traditional leaders, allegedly teamed up and enlisted the service of the police to rescue the girl. The family of the 13-year-old daughter has since appeared before the Chief Gwasela court. Chief Gwasela fined both the family that tried to marry off their daughter and the family that accepted the child as their daughter-in-law. The Constitution of Zimbabwe stipulates that the legal age for consent for sexual activity is 16, while the minimum age for marriage is 18. As a result, marrying off a minor minor is a serious criminal offense that can attract a jail sentence.
Now in Gauteng, South Africa, 934 girls aged between 10 to 14 gave birth between April 2020 and March 2021. The details of teenage pregnancies in Gauteng were revealed by the Provincial Health MEC, Dr. Nomathemba Mokheti, in the provincial legislature on Tuesday. Mokheti said 934 girls aged between 10 and 14 gave birth between April and March this year. A total of 19,316 girls aged between 15 and 19 years gave birth during the same period, while 2,976 between the ages of 10 and 19 years had a choice to abort the fetus. The number of these teenagers is 23,226. Mokheti said, however, her department did not have the profiles of the type of men who fathered these children. She said cases of statutory rape were reported by healthcare social workers at hospitals and clinics to the Department of Social Development and by SAPS. There are no statistics collected specifically on statutory rape by the Department of Health. The cases are reported to SAPS and arrests remain their mandate, Mokheti said. All right, that brings us to the end of our first batch of stories. Africa Good Morning is still committed to bringing you the news from the SADC region and beyond. We have so much more for you after the break. Now, Johan van Rooyen of Green Enterprise Solutions talks about ransomware, what it is and what to do better to protect our personal computers and business computers. Have a look.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Today I'm joined with Johan here from Green Enterprise Solutions. Johan, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
We are talking about something very interesting, ransomware. Can you just quickly explain to me what exactly is that?
All right, ransomware is a type of virus or a type of malicious code where you add viruses before damaging your PC. And you had to get it repaired on some other way or get antivirus for it or whatever. Ransomware is just the next evolution to viruses, where it is basically a form of virus or some or other malware signature or codes in it. But the main aim of this is to lock your machine down, make your files inaccessible. Although you repair your machine, the files will still be inaccessible, and you have to pay individuals or companies writing these illegal software, and that's pretty much normally somewhere on the internet. You have to pay them a certain amount of Bitcoin. They normally ask money in Bitcoin. The reason for that is to make it untraceable, and they stay anonymous then basically on those payments.
Is Namibians targeted with this?
All countries are targeted. I don't think it's something where countries are being, some are targeted and some are not. It's the way these viruses normally spread, or these ransomware spread, is generic, so it's not by country or by any form of restriction to geographical limits or whatever. So we are just as affected by this as other countries are.
What can we do if if this happens to us?
So the problem with ransomware is this is what they want, right? So they want you to pay a certain amount to get your data back, and the best thing, unfortunately, to do is, well, not to pay them. That's the one thing. The first thing is you have to make sure you have backups of your data, and not on the machine you're actually working on. It should be completely separate on a different physical device, locked in your cupboard somewhere or in a safe somewhere where you back up your documents and emails and so on a separate device. We tend to see home users especially don't do this, or they do it once a year, and that's not going to end well for you on the end. You should do this on a daily basis. We see that bigger companies are much more geared for this. They have their backups, they have on-site and off-site backups, so they're much more geared for this situation. The problem with ransomware is it encrypts your data. Encryption isn't a form of virus or a form of illegal processing or whatever in that sense. When the data is encrypted, they have the key to uncrypt it. So you're actually paying for the key to uncrypt the data. And this is a normal process. So getting that key is very difficult. It takes normally months before somebody develops a key to uncompress that data or unencrypt that data. So you have to have your backups, otherwise you're going to wait a long time before you're going to get your data back. So
can we prevent it?
I wouldn't say there is something like prevention on this, because it's continuously developed. I always talk about the 3 Ps in computers or computer science, and it's not something that's it's just my version of looking at it as the 3 Ps is passwords. So make sure you have proper passwords on your machine, your email addresses, your Teams, your Zoom meetings. Have proper passwords, at least 8 characters, and it doesn't need to be always all these symbols and so on. The longer the characters, the more difficult it is to guess or to decrypt on a machine. Another thing that's very important, except the passwords, is patching your machine. So your Windows updates or your MacBook updates, your phone, you would say as well, have updates every now and then. Don't ignore them. Make time one night and update these things on a weekly basis, especially on your Windows machines. And then the last one is PC protection. So protect your machine by means of malware applications or antivirus applications, and have that up to date as well as you go with your Windows updates.
Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for telling me more about ransomware.
100%. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will be back shortly.
Welcome back to Africa. Good morning. Now, Zambia is going through a major transition right now, and our favorite correspondent, Mike Sichula, is in the real Africa, and he is ready to give us an update on the happenings in his motherland. Good morning, Mike. How are you?
Africa, good morning. I'm very well, thank you. How are you doing there?
All right, Zambia's outgoing president Edgar Lungu has conceded defeat in last week's election and has promised to facilitate a smooth transition. Tell us more about it.
Yes, like you said, Zambia is going through this period of transferring power from one party to another. And from Monday, when Mr. Hakainde Hichilema was declared winner, a lot has happened in between. On Monday afternoon, around midday, President Edgar Lungu gave a message that he has conceded defeat. It was a less than 3 minutes message that he gave on national television. In the background there, that is Mr. Lungu on your left and Mr. Hakainde Hichilema on your right. In the middle is former President Mr. Rupia Banda. The two leaders, Mr. Hichilema and President Lungu, had gone to Mr. Banda's house where they held a cordial discussion. There you can see the two leaders, the incoming president and the outgoing president, smiling and gesturing their party symbols. This meeting was also attended by former presidents of Sierra Leone, who is the African election observer mission delegation leader to Zambia, and also former president of Tanzania, Jakaya Kikwete, were present in this meeting. Details of this meeting were not availed to the media, but Mr. Banda, the former president, said just the coming together of two leaders, as well as these other former presidents being present during that meeting, says a lot about why that meeting was important. Then, like I did earlier, indicate that Mr. Lungu conceded defeat and he promised to to facilitate the transition of power, which is going to happen on Tuesday next week. So again, earlier in the same day, Mr. President-elect Mr. Hakainde Hichilema held the media briefing at his residence, and he assured Zambians that he was going to do everything that he promised them during the campaigns. And he also indicated that he was going to ensure that people who are involved in acts of corruption, acts of lawlessness in the country are not going to be entertained. So this is what has happened after he was declared winner, and this time that people are saying, wow, I think we have elected a new president, and a lot of things are going to change in Zambia.
Yes, and those are some truly powerful images, and you can really hope that Zambian society will take cues from their leaders as they're uniting. But unfortunately, that's not the case throughout, because acts of violence have persisted in different parts of the country following the declaration of Mr. Hakainde Hichilema as Zambia's 7th president. Could you please get into this, Mike?
Yes, these unfortunate acts of incidences have shocked many Zambians who are saying we voted for change, where we wanted to live in peace and coexist despite different political affiliations. However, it has not been the case. A lot of acts of lawlessness have been reported. They were reported from the first day he was declared winner. In the picture there, it's the headquarters for the Patriotic Front. It was ransacked. As you can see, all the doors were broken into. Just the vandalism was just too much. You can see there from the pictures again that the windows were broken and many other issues. And the people who were involved in these activities, they went as far as damaging vandalizing a shopping mall on the Copper Belt, which had the initials of Edgar Changwalungu Mall. So people were saying they thought it was a property of President Lungu, and they went and vandalized and stole property from shops. To the disappointment of the president-elect, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, who was demanded for answers. In the video that you can see there, those people in red are members of the UPND, and the police officer there who was being roughed, pushed. He was trying to help. He was trying to tell the cadres to the members of the UPND not to be reckless on the road. But however, they turned against him and they almost beat him up. So these things have actually disappointed authorities, especially the president-elect, because president-elect is coming on the backdrop of restoring law and order in the country. Because what had happened during the era of Mr. President Sata, there was too much lawlessness. Political cadres had powers to take over the running of markets and bus stations. They could do literally anything. And there was an incident where these cadres that went to a police station, they assaulted police officers. So Mr. Ichilema is coming with a promise that these acts are not going to be entertained under his administration. But the good thing is that police have moved in and they have begun to arrest the perpetrators of these acts of violence.
All right, now in good news, Mike, a Zambian learner is so good at writing essays that they even won a third prize at the 2021 SADC essay competition. Please tell us more about this.
Yes, this is one of the good news that has come through for Zambia. 18-year-old Rick Ngurube, who is a grade 12 learner. That's him in the picture there. He wrote an essay that has earned him $750. He came third. The first position went to Mauritius. Then the second position went to another pupil from Lesotho. So the question for the quiz was how has SADC managed to consolidate peace for the past 40 years in the region, and what should SADC do to ensure that peace is consolidated in the region? So he did write this essay, which I've gone through. It has got quite a number of information as to what SADC leaders should do to ensure that in the African region there is peace. So that's one of the bright things that has happened for the young Ricky Ngurube, who is, like I did say, is 18 years old and is actually a 12 learner at one of the oldest schools in Lusaka called Munali Secondary School.
All right. Wow, that's indeed some good news. Thank you very much, Mike, for bringing us the news from Zambia.
Thank you very much. God bless you, and I wish our viewers all the best as they watch Africa Good Morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mike. Now, if you're to ask me what kind of weather I'd like today, is the same kind of weather that's on Mike's face and Mr. Ngulube's face, glowing, full of sunlight. Unfortunately, I don't have control over that. All I can do is look forward to the weather forecast with fingers crossed. Welcome back to Africa Good Morning as we continue to be your reliable source for news in the SADC region and beyond. Speaking of news in the SADC region, we're going to cross over to South Africa and have a chat with Ari Hochad about the happenings in Mzansi. Good morning, Ari. How are you?
Good morning, everyone.
Good to have you, Ari. Now, the Department of Health in South Africa is considering opening up vaccinations to all people older than 18, starting as soon as this week. Could you tell us about that?
Now, the background in that is that there's a slow uptake, so to speak, in the vaccinations in South Africa. So the National Coronavirus Command Center has been concerned. The date was going to be 1 September for the 18 to 35-year-olds to start the vaccination process, but there's talk that it might even happen in this week, that 18 and older are going to be allowed to have vaccinations. So at the moment, 12% of South Africa have been vaccinated once, 7.8 million people, and the fully vaccinated total is 4.1 million people fully vaccinated, and that only represents 7.2% of the population. The world average at the moment is 23% vaccinated, fully vaccinated. So I think not only South Africa, but Southern Africa has got similar challenges. But hopefully that the 18-year-olds to 35-year-olds will do better than the older people.
Ari, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. Now, MTN is considering closing its operations in Afghanistan. Please tell us more.
Yes, we all know in the news that Afghanistan is in big challenges with the Taliban taking over. MTN, South African cell phone provider, is one of the big role players. They've got big interest in Afghanistan, and it creates about 1.2% of its annual revenue as well. But for a while, South Africa, or MTN, has said that they want to withdraw their operations in Afghanistan. Now, obviously, with the Taliban taking over, it's been hastened. Recently also, they stopped their operations in Syria, and that cost MTN all of 4.7 billion South African rand. That is the loss that was recorded in pulling out of Syria. So that is a challenging situation for MTN. They also have to battle a court battle. 150 American people also took MTN to court. And that was for allegations that they paid the Taliban money, the leaders the money, not to attack the cell phone towers in Afghanistan. So that's also a court case in America looming. But MTN planning to pull out of Afghanistan at the moment.
All right. Now, school education in South Africa remains under high pressure with the effects of COVID-19, and there are strong indications that the October holidays could be cancelled. Could you tell us about that, Ari?
Yeah, that's not good news. I feel sorry for all the scholars. I've got a scholar in my house as well, still at school. One is in university, but it's a difficult time for them as well. It's not only the adults that have it difficult. In July, there were some school days that was cancelled. It's just a week holiday in October, but I think it's not only for the children important, it's for the teachers important as well. I think they've got lots of catching up to do. High volumes of work they need to get over to the children. UNICEF made a big statement in saying that already they predict that South Africa or Southern Africa is 1 year behind in their education because of COVID-19. I think the challenge in South Africa and Southern Africa is the low percentage of people, of children, that have access to internet and to do things online. So it is. They say that they need 200 education days a year. It's not going to happen this year, but there's talk of taking away the holiday in October. But the South African Teachers Union is not happy with that. They say the teachers also need a break in that time.
All right, now another taxi war is looming 176 kilometers from Cape Town. Please tell us about this.
Yeah, it's sad to see how easily people can just shoot or kill somebody. It seems like the accusations at the moment is that it's linked to taxi wars, bus and taxi wars. 170 kilometers away, it's Citrusdal is the town. There was a protest. That's a protest outside of the courtroom. 2 bus drivers were killed last week, unfortunately, and 4 people arrested. And that is at the court where people protested after the court hearings. So the conflict apparently is for seasonal workers. Citrusdal is known for obviously lots of citrus and oranges, And it is a contract with seasonal workers that the bus company do have at the moment, and the taxi organization also wanted to negotiate to be part of that. And unfortunately, 2 bus drivers were just shot point blank last week. So there is a higher presence of police and authorities at the moment that they want to avoid escalation of that to something similar to what happened in the Cape Town metropole with the full-on taxi violence between bus operators and taxi operators.
All right, Ari. Now, in our feel-good story, and Lord knows we need one, the Springboks are yet to play their 100th Test match against the All Blacks, and right now it's likely to happen in Perth, Australia, due to travel restrictions into New Zealand. Could you tell us about this?
Yeah, it's in the feel-good category. I think it's the challenge in South Africa, Southern Africa. There's no international sport in South Africa. We had the British and Irish Lions. That was a unique situation. But at the moment, it's difficult to play those games. Rich history. South Africa and the All Blacks go back 100 of years or 100 years. And it's going to be the 100th test that's going to be played. It's going to be the 25th of September only, that test. But there's talk of that game not being in New Zealand. New Zealand had a new case of coronavirus. They locked down the country, and Argentina also can't play in New Zealand in 2 weeks' time. So that game might be in Perth when the All Blacks play South Africa. That would be interesting, the 100th test being on neutral ground in Australia. So South Africa play Argentina this weekend, and then the 2 teams go in a bubble. They fly to Cape Town in an aeroplane bubble. Then they fly to Australia in a bubble. For 2 weeks they're in quarantine, and then South Africa play Australia the 12th of September, and then later they also play the All Blacks. So hopefully that's a good news story, feel-good story for South Africans. At least we're going to play. Now they just need to win. That would be nice as well.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Ari, for bringing us the news from South Africa.
Thank you. Have a nice day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Cheers. This is Still Africa. Good morning, bringing you the news as you need it. After the break, we're going to dive into your economic news stories.
Three factors can help you make safe choices when you're in an area of widespread COVID-19 transmission. Consider the location, the proximity to others, and the amount of time you spend there. Where does your activity take place? Open-air spaces are always safer than enclosed spaces, particularly if they're small or without fresh air. Proximity to other people is also important. It's safest when there are fewer people around and you can keep more than 1 meter apart. How long does your activity last? The shorter, the better. Think about each of these factors and avoid situations where the risk dial is high. Small or poorly ventilated places and crowds of people for long periods of time. Stay safe. Lower the risk to yourself and others.
Welcome back to Africa. Good morning. As promised, it's time for us to get into your economic news stories for the day. And we start off in Angola as production credit reaches 578.19 billion. From July 2020 to the same period this year, the National Bank of Angola approved an amount of 905.37 million US dollars credit in favor of national production. This measure by BNA forces commercial banks to finance domestic production with up to 2.5% of their net assets. Regarding the types of companies benefiting from credit, large companies stand out with 59.17%, followed by medium companies with 38.53% and small and micro enterprises with 1.83% and 0.47% respectively. In terms of number of projects, medium enterprises stand out with 48%, followed by small enterprises with 24% and large and micro enterprises with 16% and 14% respectively. The number of banks that complied with the minimum limit of 2.50% of their net assets increased from 17 to 18 compared to June. Commercial banks approved a total of 284 projects, corresponding to 61.74% of the established minimum required.
In our next story, government embraces drone technology. Vice President Slamba Tsokwane launched the Drone Technology Center and the Drone Training Center, a result of DTC and BWAN partnership towards setting up a drone academy and a drone research center. Tsokwane said the partnership between BWAN and DTC marks a clear and deliberate public-private partnership that reflects a commitment to invest in digital transformation. He said the launch marked the beginning of a journey to automate each sector in the ministry. As government, we strongly support the Drone Technology Center and BWAN to service the nation of Botswana. DTC Assistant Managing Director Marang Bakani said with the drones, they could bring answers for all sectors and ministries. She said they will be visiting every ministry to offer presentation and training on how exactly they can make use of the drones in their ministries.
Now in our next story, jobs carnage in Lesotho. In a move that spells doom and gloom to the economy and thousands of livelihoods, denim wear manufacturing company Nian H. Singh International has begun retrenching 2,500 employees. The company will shut down its factory next month. In an interview with Lesotho Times this week, Nian H. Singh manager Ricky Chang blamed the negative impact of COVID-19 and other market forces for the retrenchments. Nian H. Singh manufactures jeans for top U.S. clothing brands like Levi Strauss and Co., among others. A massive jobs carnage is looming in the entire textiles and garment factories, as other employers are also considering laying off workers to manage their ballooning production costs.
In our next story, BON lowers economic growth forecast for 2021. Better growth prospect in the mining industry and recovery for some industry in their tertiary sector are expected to drive the economy. Domestic growth is projected to increase to 1.4% and 3.4% in 2021 and 2022 respectively, from the contraction of 8.0% in 2020. According to Emma Hayambo, Director for Strategic Communication at the Central Bank, these improvements are mainly on account of base effects, better growth prospect in the mining industry, and a recovery for some industry in their tertiary sector.
Now, in the last of our economic news stories, the cost of living is escalating in Namibia. Transport, food and non-alcoholic beverages and furnishings, housing, equipment and routine maintenance categories were the main drivers of inflation in July 2021, the Namibia Statistics Agency said. Overall annual inflation rate increased by 4% in July 2021 compared to 2.1% recorded in July 2020, an increase of 1.9 percentage points. The transport category carries the third largest weight of 14.28% in the Consumer Price Index of the NSA and contributed 35.8% to the total change in annual inflation. The two main contributors out of the three subcategories were operation of personal transport equipment and purchase of vehicles, NSA said. In addition, the food and non-alcoholic beverages category carries the second highest weight of 16.5%, the second largest after the housing category. The food category contributed 27.4% to the total change in annual inflation. Only one out of the 13 subcategories recorded negative growth, down by 0.4% year-on-year in July 2021. The largest contributor was the oils and fats subcategory, up to 17.4% year-on-year in July 2021, NSA pointed out. All right, that brings us to the end of our economic news stories. You know what comes up next? Economic indicators. Welcome back to Africa. Good morning. It's time for us to get into your sports news stories. And we start off in the world of athletics as Nairobi World Championships delayed. Namibians will have to wait another day to see their emerging stars on the track at the World Athletics Under-20 Championships, which the organizers delayed by 24 hours due to COVID-19 disrupting logistics. The competition was due to start today in Nairobi, Kenya, but will now begin tomorrow and finish on Sunday. World Athletics yesterday on its website said the impact of COVID-19 on teams traveling and the logistics of moving vital equipment around the world have proven to be a challenge. However, the full athletics program is able to be accommodated across 5 days rather than 5.5 days, with minimal impact on the athletes attending from more than 100 countries, World Athletics said.
In our next story, Osaka to donate to Haitian earthquake relief efforts. Naomi Osaka has pledged to donate her earnings from next week's Western and Southern Open to support earthquake relief efforts in Haiti, the Caribbean nation her father hails from. The four-time Grand Slam champion announced her pledge in a response to the 7.2 magnitude quake that struck the impoverished country on Saturday, killing at least 304 people and injuring hundreds. It really hurts to see all the devastation that's going on in Haiti. I feel like we really can't catch a break, Osaka said on Twitter. I'm about to play a tournament this week and I will give the prize money to relief efforts for Haiti. I know our ancestors' blood is strong. We will keep rising. World number 2, Osaka, whose mother is Japanese and who plays under the Japanese flag, has used her platform to call attention to the causes that she cares about.
Now in cricket, Proteas to begin T20 World Cup campaign against Australia. South Africa will open their 2021 T20 World Cup campaign against Australia in the first game of the Super 12 stage at the Abu Dhabi International Cricket Stadium on 23 October. It was confirmed on Tuesday as the International Cricket Council unveiled the schedule of the 16-team event. South Africa will play the West Indies on 26 October in Dubai and England on 6 November in Sharjah. Sri Lanka, champions in 2014, and Bangladesh, Ireland, Namibia, Netherlands, Oman, Papua New Guinea, and Scotland feature in round 1 of the 16-team tournament being hosted by India in the United Arab Emirates and Oman through to 14 November. The top 2 teams from each group of round 1 will make it to the Super 12s.
In our next story, Indian captain Virat Kohli elected after late Independence Day win over England. Indian captain Virat Kohli promised there would no let up from his side following an impressive 151-run win over England in the second test at Lord's on Monday, as he labelled a day-late independence celebration. Victory, which left Kohli men 1-0 up in his 5-match series, came just a day after India's Independence Day on the 15th of August, and tourists enjoy plenty of vocal support at Lord's. "We fed off that energy," said Kohli. "It's a day-late celebration for Independence Day. It's the best feeling we can give the Indians here and back in India. We have 3 matches to go and we will be just as intense," added Kohli. Looking to lead India to just a 4th Test series win in England after success in 1971, 1986 and 2007.
In the last of our sports stories, Van Niekerk and Trayon make welcome return ahead of tour to West Indies. Cricket South Africa is pleased to announce its 18-player squad for the Momentum Proteas tour to the West Indies starting later this month. Team captain Dane Van Niekerk makes a welcome return to the squad for this all-important tour to the Caribbean against the formidable West Indies women's side after recovering from the injury that kept her out of the series wins against Pakistan and India earlier this year. Having recovered from her injury, all-rounder Chloe Trayon is another key player making her comeback into the squad. The pair have gained invaluable match practice, as have other senior players in the 100 tournament currently taking place in the UK, and will be hoping to carry that same momentum into the national side. Van Niekerk, who has also honed her captaincy skills at the helm of the Oval Invincibles, has scored 200 runs at an average of 66.66 with a strike rate of almost 113. She and fellow senior Protea Lizelle Lee are 2 of the 5 players to have scored 200 or more runs in the tournament to date. Wow, I'm looking at those statistics, mind blown. We certainly hope that translates into success for the Proteas. All right, this is 2 Africa. Good morning. After the break, we'll be back with your headlines. Africa Good Morning has been streaming live from 7 a.m. Now, if you perhaps missed our top stories at the top of the hour, or if you need a recap, worry not, here are some of the headlines. Change is here, says Zambia's President-elect Hakainde Hichilema. Female soldiers on the front line in northern Mozambique. Mozambique's military offensive facing little resistance. CENI, the National Assembly, grants 72 hours to religious denominations to find a consensus. Production credit reaches 578.19 billion in Angola. Those have been our stories.
We thank you very much for joining us. We do welcome your remarks regarding our show. You can email them to us. Our email is agm_2centsworth@nmh.com.na. Do not forget to wear your mask, get vaccinated, and avoid unnecessary public gatherings. We are also on live television right now. You can visit our website, oneup2.com, for more content that you would love to see. And on that note, it's all our love and all our light.
Until tomorrow, Suraj Zakanaka.